After the chaos of their third album Be Here Now, Oasis had a choice: repeat the noise or change completely. And what came next was the most human album they ever made. At the end of the 90s, something had changed. Just a few years earlier, Oasis had felt unstoppable. 2 defining albums, definitely maybe What's the Story Morning Glory. Then came the massive spectacle of Be Here Now, an album born in excess. Endless sessions, endless guitars, endless partying. At the time it sold in incredible numbers, the fastest selling album in British history when it was first released in August 1997, but something inside the band had started to burn out, and Noel Gallagher knew it.
It's the sound of a bunch of guys on coke in the studio not giving a fuck. There's no bass to it at all. I don't know what happened to that. It's all... And all the songs are really long, and all the lyrics are shit. And for every millisecond Liam is not saying a word, there's a fucking guitar riff in there, in a Wayne's World style, you know. Fucking air guitar gone mental.
The touring cycle for Be Here Now was wild, but also exhausting. The band was still huge, but the cultural tide had begun to shift. Britpop itself was fading, and the endless hype that once surrounded Oasis now felt a little bit different. But by 1998, Noel had stopped taking drugs and suddenly was looking at everything differently. There was a sense that the band had reached the end of one version of themselves, the laddish bravado, the champagne-fueled chaos, the idea that Oasis could simply release anything and the world would fall at their feet. That illusion had suddenly cracked. So when it came time to make the next album, Noel didn't want to repeat the past. He wanted to go somewhere else entirely. The album that followed would be called Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. And from the beginning, it felt like a reset. The recording sessions began in April 1999 at Wheeler End Studios in Buckinghamshire, at Noel's own studio. But the band Oasis had been during the 90s was already starting to dissolve. 2 founding members, Paul Bonehead Arthurs and Paul Gwigsy McGuigan, both left the band during the early stages of recording. Now for the first time, Oasis felt less like the gang of Manchester friends that had conquered the world together, and more like a band evolving into something new. New members arrived. Gem Archer joined on guitar, Andy Bell, formerly of the band Ride, came in on bass. Suddenly Oasis felt different, more serious, more musical, less about chaos.
It brought a sense of drive, because, you know, with 2 new people in the band, it's all new to them, playing stadiums and all that, and it was funny in a way, reliving the kind of the magic of it all through someone else's eyes, you know. Like Gem was like fucking hell, I can't believe we're playing a fucking River Plate Stadium or something, and you're just like, yeah, it's pretty fucking special, isn't it? You know, you forget, you know.
Even Liam Gallagher was beginning to change. For the first time, Liam started writing songs for himself. Tracks like Little James marked the beginning of Liam stepping into a creative role within the band, something that would shape Oasis' later years. It genuinely felt like the start of a new era. Musically, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants was unlike anything Oasis had done before.
And I wanted to make a record that showed a few different sides to what it is that I do.
Just a lot different, you know what I mean? There's not too many guitars in it, you know what I mean? You can hear the bass breathes a bit, you know what I mean, I think.
And obviously the stuff I've done outside the band with the Chemical Brothers and Goldie and stuff like that, you can gain a lot of knowledge of different things of people like that. So just having a look around more, really.
This album leaned into atmosphere. There were psychedelic textures, Eastern influenced sounds, looping rhythms and darker tones. It was Oasis looking inward instead of outward. And nowhere is that clearer than on one of the album's most haunting tracks, Gas Panic. Gas Panic is looming and mysterious. Built on hypnotic guitars and pounding drums, it captures something Oasis had rarely shown before: vulnerability. The song was inspired by Noel Gallagher's own experiences with panic attacks after quitting drugs. The lyrics felt searching, uneasy, almost creepy. It's one of the most personal things he had ever written, and Liam sings it in such an interesting way. It's one of his best ever vocals.
I was thinking, well, I'm going to use drum loops on that, and you know, the bass line's going to be really complicated here, and it's not going to be all about the song, so to speak. It's going to be more about the musicianship. And I was thinking, well, you know, is it all going to work with new people and in a new environment?
And the amazing thing for me is that it all worked and it didn't feel weird, it just felt really natural. So, and it still sounds like an Oasis record, but it sounds like a different kind of Oasis record, which is what we should have done last time.
Even with the darker tone, the album still had moments of classic Oasis. The lead single, Go Let It Out, was released in February 2000 and debuted at number 1 in the UK. It was psychedelic, playful, and unmistakably influenced by the Beatles, swirling production, and a chorus that felt enormous. It sounded like Oasis, but delivered through a stranger lens. Then there's songs like Roll It Over, a towering closing track that builds slowly into something massive and emotional. The lyrics feel almost like a cry for help. It's epic but wounded. Perhaps the most revealing song on the record is Sunday Morning Cool. Unlike the bravado of early Oasis songs, this one feels reflective, almost uncomfortable in its honesty. The lyrics describe waking up one day and realising the dream isn't what you thought it would be. For Noel, it was about the moment that the fantasy cracked. The fame, the parties, the chaos, and the quiet realisation that none of it had actually solved anything. It's introspective in a way Oasis had never really been before.
Taking too much drugs, watching everyone fall away, and you coming through the other end, and no one else. It's the one that touched me the most, yeah. And it's my favourite song. No, I don't sing on it. Ain't that weird?
When Standing on the Shoulders of Giants was released in February 2000, the reaction was mixed. Some fans loved the new depth, others missed the swagger and immediacy of early Oasis. Because unlike Be Here Now, which divided people but still sounded unmistakably like Oasis, this record felt like something else, a darker Oasis. A searching Oasis, an Oasis that had been through the fire and was trying to rebuild itself from the ground up. Looking back now, Standing on the Shoulders of Giants felt like an album the band had to make. Not to prove they were still the biggest band in the world, but to prove they could survive being the biggest band in the world. To prove that Be Here Now wasn't the end of the story. The band had burned through the excess, and what came next was something more human, more uncertain, but also more honest. For some fans, it remains one of Oasis' most underrated records. For others, it's their boldest reinvention. But either way, it's the sound of a band staring into the aftermath of their own myth and trying to figure out what comes next.